Could have gone either way. Railroad union deal barely survived. President Joe Biden narrowly avoided an economic and political debacle on Thursday as senior administration officials helped salvage a tentative, last-minute deal to avert a devastating railroad strike. Steering clear of disaster required some 20 straight hours of talks beginning Wednesday that taxed Labor Department coffee supplies, kept West Wing office lights burning through the early hours and left everyone involved bleary-eyed and largely sleepless. The agreement, still subject to union members' approval, seemed all but dead late into the night as talks led by Labor Secretary Marty Walsh dragged on with all sides in the years-long dispute frustrated and exhausted. But the prospect of dormant freight trains leaving fall crops to rot in the fields, livestock to die of starvation and grocery shelves to go empty hung over the West Wing and spurred heavy pressure from Biden and the White House to strike a deal. A rail strike affecting 40% of the nation's freight traffic at a cost of $2 billion a day could have severely damaged an economy already suffering from supply chain snarls, the highest inflation in 4 decades and a Federal Reserve pumping hard on the brakes to bring prices down. It's like, holy Christ, the magnitude of what would have happened, Walsh, running on an hour and a half of sleep, said in an interview. It's like, holy Christ, the magnitude of what would have happened. The tentative agreement allowed Biden to bask in a Rose Garden victory ceremony and tout gains for organized labor, an element of the Democratic base that's critical to the party's hopes of avoiding a midterm electoral drubbing. He called the agreement an important win for our economy and the American people as well as a win for tens of thousands of rail workers. But this was more a case of flirting with catastrophe than scoring a game-changing win. And it took a buzzer-beater to get there. Things felt differently from when the sun went down to when it came up, that's for sure, said Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg, who also played a major part in the talks even while devising emergency contingency plans in the event of failure. Things felt differently from when the sun went down to when it came up, that's for sure. Buttigieg and other administration officials heaped praise on Biden for a 9 p.m. call to negotiators representing the nation's big rail carriers and union leaders, where he expressed concern and stressed that failure was unacceptable. But those involved in the talks said that while helpful, Biden was one of many who helped save the deal. Other top Democrats called into the talks to urge a deal, including House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer. And the heavy lifting on details of the deal, which granted pay hikes and time off for medical events, among other things, fell to Walsh, his deputy Julie Su, Buttigieg, National Economic Council Director Brian Deese and other White House officials. The positive outcome was very much in doubt when the emergency talks began. We didn't expect an agreement to come out of this, said Jeremy Ferguson, president of SMART's Transportation Division, one of the unions. We didn't expect an agreement to come out of this. Things began to drastically change once we got to the Department of Labor and Secretary Walsh and Deputy Secretary Su got involved and kind of facilitated mediation, Ferguson said. They drastically changed once we got to the Department of Labor and Secretary Walsh and Deputy Secretary Su got involved and kind of facilitated mediation. Union officials were careful to praise Biden. His call was very much, here he is. He's going to talk to you now, Regan, who was in touch with those in the room, said. Was very much, here he is. He's going to talk to you now. Until that point, we had a long way to go, Ferguson said. We had a long way to go, Brotherhood of Locomotive Engineers and Trainmen President Dennis Pierce added. But Ferguson and Pierce, who were at the table Wednesday and Thursday as the heads of unions that had not reached tentative agreements, also said many others played larger roles. You're kind of overemphasizing that call from Biden, Pierce said in response to repeated questioning about how it shifted the conversation. It was special to us because it meant he was paying attention. But you're kind of overemphasizing that call. It was more of a check-in than anything else. Ferguson said he wanted to hear from us what we needed to get to where we were, and how he could answer our questions or be there to help.